Hello, my spider friends. I was trying to film a video, but I'm just being constantly interrupted by cats, which is, I suppose, what happens when you live with 4 cats. This is like my 5th attempt to try and make something, and I no longer. Oh my god, I no longer have any idea what I'm doing. This is my new cuddly bantha from Build-A-Bear. He's still got the tag on it, I haven't taken it off yet. He's so cute, he's so cute. This is basically a present I bought myself. These came out at the same time as the Harry Potter ones, and we don't support J.K. Rowling because she is a bigot, and yeah, so it was very hard to not want to buy the Slytherin snake. I'd never been tempted before by any of the Harry Potter Build-A-Bear stuff, and oh god, it's so hard at Christmas being a no contributor to the Harry Potter fandom. This is what happens when the person who created something that you love turns out to be a horrible person. I can't separate. I struggle. I really, really struggle to separate the art from the artist. There are certain people, things have been ruined forever because of their actions, and Harry Potter is not an exception. It's tainted for me now. And you've got to understand, I was in school when the first Harry Potter book came out. I've been, it's a very long time, and I'm a little bit older, and this has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. And I didn't become a super fan until Goblet of Fire, because prior to then, you've got to understand, and this I think is very much true across the board. The first 2 books were because I was in senior school, they were seen as primary school levels, so it was not something that any of my friends were reading. And then Prisoner of Azkaban came out, and they were and then Goblet of Fire came out, and that changed everything, because suddenly it was this big, and suddenly it was interesting. But I didn't really become a super fan until after Goblet of Fire came out. And then I read the books first, and then I saw the movies, and there was only two at that point. Yeah, it became a part of my life at a very early age, and it was hugely influential on me growing up and developing a creative streak of my own. I was there for the Fandom Wars of Life journal. I was in the trenches for the Fandom Wars. We're talking pre-Cassandra Clare being found out that she was a plagiarist. Cassandra Clare, who, you might have heard of, because she has sort of a career built off the back of the fact that she was a very, very popular Harry Potter fan fiction writer, and then she did her own series of books called The Mortal Instruments, which has been adapted into a movie that was hilariously terrible. But we had a hell of a good time watching it, but it was very bad. And then the Netflix series, which was actually, I was shocked how good it was. I was like, there's no business being this good. But anyway, yeah, so Cassandra Clare, she's wrote the Mortal Instruments and everything, and she wrote this fan fiction called the Draco Trilogy, and basically I wasn't interested in it because it was Harry Hermione, so I never read it. At the time when it was like still being written. I read it like many years later, but I was around and I heard people talking about it. But because I never read it, I sort of missed the participation of pointing out the plagiarism in it, which was that she used to quote things extremely heavily and not credit. And this was back in the early days of when like fanfiction.net still had forums, and that's how you made friends. And like it was expected that you would heavily credit anything that you used in your fan fiction, and it wasn't just, you know, the odd line that's become a bit of a meme. It was like, when I read this years and years later for the first time, I was like, oh, because there was entire chapters that seemed to be written around using a particular joke from a TV show. It was heavily like Babylon 5, Blackadder, Star Trek, and then like there were all these books, and what found out is that it wasn't just these quotes from TV shows that were like uncredited, which that's considered a no. It's considered a, like, you shouldn't do that. You should credit, but it's not a big bad sin. What was a big bad sin was she'd lifted like a very large chunk of text from a book by Pamela Dean. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head now, but she'd lifted a large section of this book and only changed like a few words, and then she hadn't credited the book's author, or that she hadn't actually like said that she'd lifted a large chunk of the text. She'd sort of just implied like it was inspired by this scene from another thing. That's fine. Like, I often use I do a little bit of text role play, and I often use things from like Star Wars and Star Trek in like text role play that's set in like the Witcher universe, because my my text role play partner has never seen any Star Trek and never seen any Star Wars, so I use a bit of like that world building to like supplement things that I don't know about the Witcher, and she has no idea because she's never seen either of them. But I'm not like claiming these things to be mine, but like I'm using it as like inspiration and stuff. But what Cassandra Clare had done, Naughty Lady, is that she'd taken like a giant passage of the book and changed a couple of words and then put it in and then not properly credited, which is actually that's plagiarism at that point. So there was a huge debacle and it got deleted, and then it was finished off eventually, and anyway, yes, I've totally gone off the side track here. Harry Potter, that's what we were talking about. I've been in the fandom a long time. That was a huge tangent. Yes, I've been in the fandom a really long time. This has been a huge part of my life. This, like, you know, I chickened out. I was going to get a tattoo. I don't have any tattoos, but I was going to get, like, the Dark Mark tattoo on my arm, because like I'm a Slytherin, and like me and my friend just love like the Death Eater aesthetic, and I just chickened out of doing it. But like, you know, we've always like had fun being the baddies, and kidding. And you know, like I've got years worth of merchandise, years and years worth. I've got stuff that's like actually quite rare that's not made anymore. I've got like I've got a kitten playing in the shed. That's what I've got. I've got like some like very limited edition stuff. I have a lot of stuff, and I don't want to part with any of it, because this is stuff that like I have loved dearly. It's been part of my life. Like I have made lifelong friends through Harry Potter. Like I worked on like various fan things which were filling in like bits of the wizarding world that had never been like fully explored, or stuff that was like offhand mentioned and then expanding on that for like fan fiction writers, like the Fire Broom Brigade, which is something that's like, I think it's like an advert in a newspaper, like join the Fire Broom Brigade. And it's like, right, so that's the wizarding version of the Fire Brigade. Like, what would that be like? And working with other fandom people to just sort of expand silly little stuff like that, just for ourselves. And then, like, I mean, it's one thing to be ignorant of things like, the example uses like Frank Oz. Frank Oz had said something quite dismissive of people who were like talking about Bert and Ernie, and he did some research and he came back and he said, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't understand why it was important to people to have representation. Like, the things that I said were wrong. I am an idiot. I'm really sorry. Like, he had an opinion that was like, it wasn't an incorrect. Basically, what he'd said was that, like, we never intended Bert and Ernie to be gay, so don't think of them as gay. Whereas people were like, but this is like like an asexual gay relationship, and that's representative for both like asexuality and like gay relationships, and it's a healthy relationship, and it's something that kids are exposed to as a young age. So like, why can't it be that if it doesn't change anything and it doesn't matter? And he was like, oh well, you've made a point there. And J.K. Rowling has like the very bigoted opinion that trans women aren't women. And then when it was like explained to her and said like, listen, Joe, I know that you think that you're sticking up for like by being a TERF, by being a trans exclusionary radical feminist. I can't even say the thing that she thinks that she is doing, because it's so ignorant, and I can't do it. But J.K. Rowling said a pretty horrible thing, and it's ruined Harry Potter for me, really. And when it comes to this time of year and people don't know what to get me, I often get Harry Potter merchandise, and I'm like, oh, like, thank you, but you shouldn't buy it for me because we don't support J.K. Rowling anymore. And people are like, well, you don't like Harry Potter? And I'm like, no, well, I love Harry Potter. I can't cut Harry Potter out of my life, but we don't support J.K. Rowling, so we don't buy the merch anymore. We don't give her more money. She's already rich beyond measure. We don't continue to add to that when she is a bigot. And I'm sorry, I've got a whingy little kitten in the shed. So it's hard at Christmas because I did get some Harry Potter stuff. One thing I got, like, actually, sort of, I got 2 t-shirts, and neither of them were like a properly licensed t-shirt, so that was fine. But I did get a mug, and I'm like, oh, that's nice, and it was very thoughtful, and thank you very much. I really do appreciate it, but in the future, please don't buy me any more Harry Potter stuff, at least not officially licensed Harry Potter stuff, because we don't support J.K. Rowling. And then people ask why, and it's always the older people, and oh, they don't get it. Often they just don't get it. I don't know what it is with like my parents' generation, and like I can't even remember. Is it boomers? And my parents, my mother is 60, and her friends are like between the ages of like 50 and over now. She's got friends in like the 70s and 80s. I mean, I'd have some older friends as well, but like most of my mum's friends, so like whatever generation that is, they struggle to understand some things, and it's not, I think sometimes it's not out of hatred or anything, it's just out of ignorance. And I don't know, sometimes it's just like they just don't get things, and it's hard to explain it to them. I mean, all you can do is keep trying. So yeah, that's like me dilemma at Christmas time, is like having that. And like Harry Potter's not the only thing I've had to like cut out of my life. Like one of my favourite films was like The Usual Suspect, and between Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey, like that's ruined forever. And like my favourite film of all time is Jaws, and my second favourite film of all time is Jurassic Park. And I've heard some things about somebody involved with both of those movies that would ruin them forever for me as well. Uh, so yeah, things getting ruined forever. It's not great. Not this time of year. I did not mean this video to be a bummer.